This movie has some real bad pacing problems. And what I mean by that is that it's a very slow crawl to the ending. Like, it takes what seems like forever to get to its point. At 2.5 hours, the movie feels like 2.5 hours. At one point, like, I'm watching the movie and like I feel like I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably about like halfway through this. This isn't bad. I then just checked the time really quick, and it was only 45 minutes. It is broken up into three parts, so essentially three acts, like any other movie, except they tell you part one, part two, part three. And this is about Snow, old corny Snow, uh, his journey into like how he became the Snow that we know from the original Hunger Games. This takes place 64 years in the past. It's the 10th annual Hunger Games. This is the first time that there's mentors. This is the first time that it's being turned into like a spectacle. It was always televised, but this is the first time it's had like a host. It's the first time it's had any kind of perks, and they're turning it into a major spectacle because they're losing viewers. And it is actually very interesting, the first two parts, because we get to know Snow as like a teenager in his upper teens, and just knowing him from the Hunger Games as like this cold old man. It's like, how did he become this like cold guy who just doesn't really give a shit? And the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes does tell us that, but by the time it gets to it in part three, the end of part three, I don't care because it just took so long to get there. When this was first announced, I haven't read the books. Any of the books, I didn't even know Songbirds and Snakes actually came out as a book. I thought Hollywood was just like, oh hey, let's squeeze this for money and make up a prequel. So I didn't know. But like when this was first announced, I was like, ooh, a prequel to the Hunger Games. Okay, yeah. I want to see how like the end of the war, like how the war ended. I want to see how the districts were formed. I want to see the actual formation of the first ever Hunger Games. This should be cool. Then the first trailer came out and it's like, oh, it's the 10th annual Hunger Games. That's a little disappointing. But I think they do overall a good job in telling the story, and the performances are actually stellar. Tom Blythe is Snow, and he is great. Rachel Zegler, who I was never really much of a fan of, she actually puts in a phenomenal performance. She is strong. She is commanding every time she's shown on screen. It's like, I want her to survive. I want her like to not die. Viola Davis also has a small part, and she also absolutely commands the screen every time she's on, which is not surprising. She's Viola Davis. She's a fucking amazing actor. Peter Dinklage also shows up, another overall small part, a little bigger than Viola Davis. And again, Peter Dinklage, he's amazing. Jason Schwartzman shows up as Lucretius Flickerman, who we can assume is probably an ancestor to Caesar Flickerman, the current host of the Hunger Games, or well, I guess former, since the Hunger Games is now kind of over in like the current main timeline. But he's the first ever host of the Hunger Games, so we assume that Caesar like takes over for his ancestor, probably his grandfather, I would guess. But Jason Schwartzman puts in just an amazing performance as a Flickerman. He doesn't surpass Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci made that role, Caesar's, as his own. Like, he was brilliant. But Schwartzman does do a good job. The chemistry among Blythe and Zegler is also amazing. Like, they do want to care. Like, you do want to care about them. But for me, as it gets to the third act, as it starts, like as the cracks start to form and it really starts to kick in, like, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen to Snow. This is why he's like a total asshole and like cold and calculating and doesn't give a shit in the future. Yeah, I don't care because it took so long to get there. Ultimately, the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. There's the Snakes and Songbirds. No, it's Songbirds and Snakes. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Songbirds and Snakes. It is a good movie. It really is. It's got great performances. It's beautifully shot. The effects are great. Like even there's a giant pile of CGI snakes, which is not a spoiler. We kind of see it in one of the trailers. There's moments where those look definitely fake, but then there's other moments where it's like, oh wow, these snakes are kind of pretty real looking. But overall, the effects are great. The story itself, while I was disappointed in that it wasn't the first Hunger Games, it's still a great story. It's very, very interesting, and it does make you wonder how it keeps going, why it keeps going, because and when the Hunger Games picks up with Katniss Everdeen, it's the 74th annual Hunger Games, and like I kind of want to know what happened between the 11th and the 74th. Will we? I don't know. If this movie makes a whole lot of money, Hollywood might milk it and make more movies, though I would personally, again, be more interested in seeing the actual formation of the districts and the Hunger Games itself. But despite the pacing problems and the third act just kind of being the fantastic performances of our cast do keep you engaged, they keep you interested, and me, I didn't care come the end of the movie, but I can see why some might get connected with the characters and actually be like, "Oh my god!" But yeah, I give The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm going to give it a B plus.
Did you enjoy the review? Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to get notified when more reviews go live. Feel free to leave a comment to discuss your thoughts on the movie or show, and I will see you next time.